Germania, 178 AD, a land of shadow, mist, and untamed fury. While the Roman Empire stretches from the deserts of Africa to the edges of Britannia, here, beyond the Danube, lies a wilderness Rome has never tamed. For decades, this dark forest land has been a bleeding wound in the side of the empire wild. It's unpredictable and full of tribes that bow to no emperor. But in this fateful year, Rome gathers its legions once more for a savage campaign. A brutal war meant to break the Germanic resistance once and for all. At the center of it stands a young man not yet a legend, not yet a tyrant Commodus. He is the heir to the most powerful throne on earth, and he's about to taste the reality of war. To understand the significance of this campaign, you must first understand the crisis Rome faced at the end of the 2nd century AD, the Pax Romana. Rome's great era of peace and prosperity was fracturing. The frontiers, especially in the north, had become volatile. The Danube River, once a secure and natural border, was now crossed regularly by invading tribes. The Marcomanni, the Quadi, the Sarmatians, all fierce. Decentralized warrior cultures raided Roman towns, burned settlements, and killed civilians without mercy. These were not just border skirmishes. It was a challenge to Roman supremacy. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, known as the Philosopher King, spent much of his reign leading military campaigns in the north. Despite his love of philosophy and reason, Marcus was forced to embrace the brutal necessities of war. The so-called Marcomannic Wars had already raged for years by 178. This was no glorious crusade. It was a war of attrition, of freezing winters, ambushes, and constant losses. Rome poured resources into the frontier like blood into soil, and yet the tribes would not yield. Amid this chaos, Marcus took an extraordinary step. In 177 AD, he appointed his son Commodus as co-emperor. Commodus was just 15. By 17, he was marching north with the legions, joining his father on the campaign. But Commodus was not like his father, where Marcus was stoic and thoughtful. Commodus was theatrical, narcissistic, and obsessed with his own image. He didn't dream of statues and togas. He dreamed of standing like Hercules, bare-chested, sword raised, adored by the masses. His fascination with gladiators, even as a teenager, was well known. He trained with them, studied them, admired their strength, their flair, their theatrical deaths, but now, for the first time, he would see real war, not the stagecraft of the arena, but the filth, the fear, and the pain of true battle. Germania was unlike any other province, thick with forests, dotted with swamps, and ruled by scattered, fiercely independent tribes. It was a nightmare for the Roman military machine. The legions, so used to disciplined ranks and open battlefields, found themselves constantly under attack in unfamiliar terrain. Germanic warriors didn't fight by Roman rules, used guerrilla tactics, striking from trees and vanishing into mist. Roman camps were attacked in the night, patrols vanished without a trace. Rome's invincibility was being tested. Commodus witnessed it all. He traveled with the army through Vindobona and Carnuntum modern day. Vienna and Slovakia, where the Danube served as a fragile barrier between civilization and chaos. It's likely he saw villages burned to the ground, entire families enslaved or executed. Roman retaliation was no less savage. Whole tribes were wiped out in punitive massacres, prisoners crucified along roads as warnings, children sold into slavery. This was not the arena. There was no crowd to cheer, no applause to reward his pose. It's mud, blood, and screams. Still, Commodus used the war to polish his legend. He posed for statues in full armor, with lion pelts over his shoulders, carrying a club like Hercules. He demanded to be seen not just as a prince, but as a demigod. His propaganda machine was already at work, turning every skirmish he attended into a personal triumph. And yet, the generals knew the truth. Commodus was not leading, he was observing. The real burden fell to men like Claudius Pompeianus, a seasoned commander, and his own brother-in-law, who carried out the brutal logistics of survival and conquest. Then, in March of 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius died in Vindobona, possibly of plague. The great philosopher-emperor, who had dreamed of securing the frontier once and for all, was gone. His death sent shockwaves through the army. He had been a father figure not only to Commodus, but to the entire military structure of the Northern Front. All eyes turned to Commodus. Just 18 years old, and suddenly the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. And what did he do? He ended the war. Without ceremony, without triumph, Commodus negotiated peace with the Germanic tribes. He ordered the legions to retreat. He signed treaties, made promises, and then turned south toward Rome, abandoning the dream of permanent conquest beyond the Danube. He had no interest in spending the next decade knee-deep in mud, chasing ghosts through the forests of Germania. Many in the Senate and army were outraged. They saw a chance, perhaps the last chance, to finally bring Germania into the Roman fold, to establish new provinces and fortresses beyond the frontier. But Commodus didn't care for long-term strategy. He cared for spectacle, for image, for adoration. And Rome would give him all of that in exchange for bread and circuses. What followed was one of the most bizarre and theatrical reigns in Roman history. Commodus returned to Rome not as a war hero, but as a divine gladiator. He claimed that the gods themselves had guided his hand. He commissioned art that depicted himself as Jupiter, Hercules, and Sol Invictus. And then, astonishingly, he began to fight in the arena. At once, not symbolically, but repeatedly hundreds of times. Historians report over 700 fights staged for him, always rigged, always victorious. He charged the state for every performance. When the money ran out, he demanded more. He fought wild animals, disabled gladiators, and prisoners. Some accounts claim he even fought amputees, ensuring that no one could ever land a blow. But make no mistake, this obsession with violence didn't come from nowhere. Commodus had seen true war. In Germania, he had smelled the smoke of burned villages, heard the cries of the dying, and it terrified him. He returned to Rome determined to control the chaos, to make violence beautiful, choreographed, and entirely within his grasp. The arena was his war, but he chose the battlefield. He chose the timing, the enemy, the outcome. It was war without danger. It's power without resistance. And that choice had consequences. By abandoning the northern campaign, Commodus left Germania unconquered. He allowed the Germanic tribes to recover, to grow stronger, to learn Roman tactics. He gave them time. They would not forget. Over the next 2 centuries, it would be these same tribes, now transformed into powerful coalitions like the Goths. Vandals and Franks who would cross the Danube, sack Roman cities, and ultimately help bring about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In many ways, the seeds of Rome's decline were sown not in blood-soaked battle, but in Commodus' decision to walk away from the fight. And what of the emperor himself? Commodus reigned for 12 more years after his return. His rule grew increasingly erratic, cruel, and disconnected from reality. He renamed Rome after himself. He renamed the months of the year after his titles. He declared that he alone was the new sun god. In 192 AD, he was assassinated, strangled in his bath by a wrestler, part of a conspiracy that included his closest advisors. He died as he lived, in delusion, isolated, surrounded by enemies he no longer saw coming. To the Roman people, he had once been a golden god, but history remembers him as a madman, a tyrant in silk robes, a gladiator emperor, who confused theater with governance. And yet, beneath the madness lies a chilling truth. Commodus was shaped by the horrors of real war. His obsession with control and performance was born in the forests of Germania, where applause never came, and death was always real. The 178 AD campaign was a turning point. It could have marked a new chapter in Rome's expansion, a hard-fought victory that secured the frontier for generations. Instead, it became a lost opportunity, a ghost of what might have been. Commodus turned his back on conquest, and with it, on the legacy of his father. In doing so, he set Rome on a different path, one that led not to glory, but to decline. If you think you know the Roman Empire, think again. The war in Germania wasn't just a military campaign. It was a mirror showing us the limits of power, the corruption of ego, and the fine line between emperor and actor. So, if you found this story gripping like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next journey into the brutal, beautiful chaos of history. Because the past isn't dead, it's waiting to be remembered.